Yasmat jatam jagat sarvam yasminyeva praliyate yenedam dharyate chaiva tasmai jnanatmane namaha. Ishvaro gururatmeti murti beda vibhagine Vyomavat vyapta dehaya dakshinamurtaye namaha. Taittiriya kasarasya mayacharya prasadataha vispashtartaruchinam hi vyakyeyam sampraniyate. Om Shanno mitrasham varunaha Shanno bhavatvaryama Shanna indro brihaspatihi Shanno vishnururukramaha Namo brahmane Namaste vayo Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi Tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami Ritam vadishyami Satyam vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu mam Avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ritancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Satyancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Tapascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Damascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Shamascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Agnayascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Agnihotrancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Atitayascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Manushancha swadhyaya pravachanecha Prajacha swadhyaya pravachanecha Prajanascha swadhyaya pravachanecha Prajatischa swadhyaya pravachanecha Satyamiti satyavacharati Tapayiti tapo nitya paurusishtihi Swadhyaya pravachanaye veti nakho maudgalyaha Tadhitapaha. So this is the 9th Anuvaka. We saw a little bit of that in the last class. 1 minute. Last class we saw so last class we saw a little bit of this. Anyway, we will continue. But to go back once again, this 9th Anuvaka of Sikshavalli, I call it as Swadhyaya Prashamsa. Subtitle is Swadhyaya Prashamsa because in this Anuvaka there are 12 important ideas, 12 aspects mentioned for a graduating student. Remember, Sikshavalli is actually a convocation address in Taittiriya Upanishad. Students are passing out, and while students are passing out, the Rishi wants to give some words of wisdom. This is the last opportunity. So that is the perspective with which we have to understand and appreciate some of these. So there are 12 very important aspects, certain aspects which the Rishi is pointing out in this Anuvaka. And above all, as you see, as you have noticed, every of these 12 principles end with Swadhyayancha Pravachanacha. Every one of them ends with a termination, Swadhyaya and Pravachana. So by that the Rishi is communicating, above all these, you must be constantly in Swadhyaya and Pravachana. So this is the spirit of this Anuvaka. We have seen a little bit, we will see more of that. Actually, if you look at it quite deeply, this Anuvaka actually provides the essence of some of the cultural choices that our ancestors have made, their approach to education. This Anuvaka is very interesting. Up till 8th Anuvaka, it's all Upasanas. Now it has turned a little worldly now. It is now also telling a few things about, because we have to, even it is true here. You graduate out of this great institution, when you are out on the road, the world is dirty. So, dirty I am using not in a derogatory sense. What I am saying is, it has all its variety of things. So, we need to handle things. So, this last portion, we have almost come to the last portion of Sikshavalli. So the last portion of Shikshavalli is, as part of the convocation address, the Rishi is pointing to some aspects of larger principles of living. That is where this is going on. So therefore this Anuvaka begins, same thought continues in the next Anuvaka, with that the Sikshavalli ends. So it gives an idea of the cultural choices that our ancestors have made, their approach to education, their perspectives to life. What is life? You are able to see that here. If you carefully look at the Anuvaka, it also gives us that sense of what is our ancestral perspective to life. What do you mean by succeeding in life? What do you mean by saying I have a full life? Which is a big question bothering us today. While we have pushed that question to the background, instead replaced it with how do I get good salary, how do I get promotion, we have replaced that with another question, thinking both are same. That's a different issue. The point I am saying is every society has a perspective on what does it mean to succeed in life. What does it mean to lead a life of satisfaction? That also you will see here in this Anuvaka if you see it deeply. And interestingly, what I also find is some of those ideas are in contrast to our current day assumptions, are in contrast to how we have, for example, I already gave an example. What does it mean to succeed in life? You call a set of people, they may be, budding students in the 12th standard or in the final year of their graduating class, or a 30-year-old professional, young professional, you please conduct a half-an-hour discussion. And at the end of the discussion, jot down that 5-6 points which emerged in the discussion on the board. And compare it with this Anuvaka, you will find a little different. That is what I am saying. Today's society has taken a certain position. Whereas in this Anuvaka, if you carefully see it in a little deeply, it suggests something else, which points to the choices that they made and the way they thought we should lead our life. There lies the wisdom of the Vedic lore, actually. We will see that. So there are some crucial differences. I want to talk about those differences. As has been saying, mantras are very easy. Take an English meaning, translate it in English, over. These are important. We will see the background to the mantras, see the Taitttiriya of the mantras and the Sukshma of the mantras, and then see the mantras. We will do that. Okay. First thing is, why did the Rishi, and that's why I saw this title in Ramakrishna Math's books only, I saw the subtitles. Why did this Anuvaka is called Swadhyaya Prashamsa? That's the subtitle. In other words, why did the Rishi chose to put, for all the 12 things he is saying, he is terminating with Swadhyayanancha Pravachanancha. Swadhyayancha Pravachanacha. That's what he says, no? Swadhyaya Pravachanacha. Swadhyaya and Pravachana. Swadhyaya and Pravachana. This actually points to a certain approach to education. This is the first message we will have to actually get out of it. Swadhyaya and Pravachana is continuously repeated in all the 12 items in this Anuvaka. So this implies, in a way, if you look at it, what is the Rishi saying? The Rishi is saying a life is one of continuous learning. The Swadhyaya is what? Learning. So he says, because he is talking about many different things in life, which will be done a little early, which will be done a little later, which will be done forever. These 12 attributes, if you see, some of them are as long as you breathe and survive, you have to do. Some of them you are expected to do at certain stages of your life. Since he attached these to all the 12, so the first message is their perspective of education is very different. Their perspective of education is one of, it has two components. First component is learning is a continuous process. That's why there is this old shloka, Acharyat Padam Adatte, Padam Sishyaha Somedaya, Padam Sa Brahmacharibhyaha, Padam Kalakramenacha. So 1/4, Padam is 1/4. In all Indian languages, Padam is 1/4. Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, everywhere you see in Sanskrit, Padam is 1/4. Leg is one meaning, but 1/4 is another meaning. Padam. Right? So Acharyat Padam. 25% learning in a formal educational setting from the teacher is only 25%. Acharyat Padam Adatte. Padam Sishyaha Swamedaya. Everyone, a true seeker, a true learner must utilize his faculty of self-reflection. Swamedha Shakti. There lies 25% learning. Padam Sa Brahmacharibhyaha. In a Gurukula, there are other people. So group work. By getting together with others and discussing, understanding, sharing, 25% will come is what they are saying. Padam Sa Brahmacharibhyaha. And finally they said Padam Kalakramenacha. So that is why learning in our culture is not something which is done and full stop. It is only a comma all the time. So that is why learning and a perspective to education is lifelong. That is one dimension which is coming. The second dimension is an integral part of learning is sharing. If we are not sharing, we are not learning. And we are so selfish, we are so short-sighted. So learning, the second component of learning is sharing. Now leave this selfishness and all that for the moment. It is our experience, and if you don't have an experience, please do that. This is a simple suggestion I am telling you. Suppose you want to know something. You read it, or you learnt it, or heard it, or you are very keen to know it very clearly. Offer to teach it to someone. This is the trick of acquiring knowledge. You try it, you will develop phenomenal clarity. I am reciting this Taittiriya Upanishad for 20 years now. By God's grace, my clarity has improved because I offered to teach you now. These mantras are vibrating very differently for me now. All of us have this experience. So it is not even for any other perspective. We will get ultimate clarity in anything in life only when we are willing to share it. Knowledge is the only one which works counterproductive to any material thing, where if you take it will become less. With a lamp you can light thousands and thousands and thousands of lamps. The original lamp will never lose its shine, never lose its power and ability to light. If it requires a little oil, you can always pour some more oil, that's the only thing. But a lamp can light million lamps. So knowledge is like that. And contrary to current thinking, I am in a profession of knowledge sharing, there is a lot of thinking you have to keep all your PPTs intact. Don't share. Teachers, a lot of them feel like that. They are very insecure. This is a very wrong understanding. The more and more you are able to share, actually, there are two things which can happen. You will see a joy of somebody knowing But I will tell you, you will see the joy of you knowing much better than them. That will definitely happen. Because it will always happen. When you share and share and share, you will actually improve while others will learn. Unless they share, they will not learn as much. So this is a very essence of this education. That's one aspect. Of course, the second aspect is we can't be selfish. Knowledge is a baton to be passed. We cannot say, I will get best knowledge and I don't care about my next generation. I mean, that's a very wrong direction in which Indian society has gone. That is why we find all these great Vedic knowledge as complete meaningless piece of material available to us, because as a society we have failed. And if you ask who failed, Brahmanas. Because Yadya Jatarji Shrestha Taddadeva Itarajanaha. When these Brahmins said, I will throw everything, go for a job. I will go for software company, I will do this, the society will turn. I will put squarely the blame on Brahmins. Brahmanas are supposed to hold the torch and have the pride of sharing it. They are elsewhere now. That's why the whole society takes courage, say, let's also do it. Because they look upon this, that are all gone today. So it has to be shared. So education means it has to be continuously learned, and we must make every effort to share. So this is the first thing. This is in contrast with the current method of education. If you look at our paradigm today, this is a market-driven economy. Okay? This is a consumer-oriented society. Okay? This is so which means if you are in a market-driven economy and a consumer-oriented society, education for the most part is strictly utilitarian. Software firms say, get me a person whom I can employ today evening. So you start finishing schools, bridge courses. Education is actually something which is all about skill development programs, vocational training, very utilitarian. Education has gotten into a utilitarian domain today. So that's why these finishing school, bridge courses, skill development programs, vocational training, lots of honestly you go and see. Most part of education learning centers around these kinds of topics, these kinds of keywords. Why? Because it's a market-driven, consumer-oriented paradigm of life. So our life perspective, what is life, has actually changed, which we have borrowed from some other culture and so on. So we are also doing it like that. There is very little conversation. I am reminded of this great shloka in Bhagavad Gita. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate. It's a socially desirable discussion. Nothing can be purer than knowledge. Can be in a class like this, we can sit down and talk. Once you are outside the class, you talk about an utilitarian education. That is where we have moved. Now to say that education is our joy of knowing and sharing and all, people will start laughing at it. We have moved the paradigm of education to that level now. Forget about all these, you just use your common sense and ask how far this education will go. In the last 50 years, we have destroyed the educational system in this country. So yesterday I went to discuss starting a new university. Most part of the discussion was here. I mean, today's mechanism of education is so suffocating. It is not about the charm of creating knowledge, growing people who actually, lighten up in their eyes because they talk about knowledge. They are not there. Even PhD programs are not like that. In contrast that, this Anuvaka says our perspective of education should be different. In the long run, that is more sustaining. I don't know how far this will go. Because these are very utilitarian, 20, 30 years, and then you lock, stock and barrel go elsewhere. And it's also not a, education which Swami Vivekananda said, education is not the art of man-making. It is a way of making a little money and then be a little comfortable or something. We have somewhere moved a little bit there. Whereas this is in contrast to that. So in contrast to this emphasis, this Anuvaka, by saying Swadhyaya Pravachanecha, it is actually pointing to a larger goal of education, which will really make this Bhagavad Gita shloka Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramah vidyate a true reality, a charm, a pleasure of saying knowledge. Creating knowledge is a pleasure. Today creating knowledge is a very costly and a risky affair. In a utilitarian economy, we are taking positions like that. That's why there is so much of cry that this country's science foundation, the modern science foundation, whatever we built, we have destroyed. Because nobody wants to go to a science college today. Everybody wants to get into an engineering college and get into Wipros. There are 5-digit recruitments happening. 20,000, 30,000. They are taking by weight, I think. Body counts, that's what they use also. Body shop, body and all that they use. They don't use human being and all that. It's all, count, head counts. These are all the words used. So we have destroyed whatever little science foundation we built, we have destroyed it also. Why? Because of an educational perspective which is different from what this Anuvaka is actually saying. This is the first contrast. Look at the second contrast. Now, there are 12 things told here in this Anuvaka which fits into 5, 2 and 5. It's a block of 5, then there is 2 and there is another block of 5. This is how I see. It says, tapascha, swadhyaya pravachanecha, damascha swadhyaya pravachanecha, shamascha swadhyaya pravachanecha. There are first 5, right, which are all there. These 5 form one block, which are all values, which are all certain values. Then there are a block consisting of 2, Agneyascha, Agnihotrascha. Then there are a block of 5. So the point is, by putting 12 in 3 compartments, this Anuvaka is actually, the undercurrent of this Anuvaka is actually a stronger message. What it says is, nobody can abstain from a variety of duties. These 12 are actually pointing, first 5 is values, but the second block of 2 and the last block of 5 actually point to certain duties as part of the society. It actually points to that. That is the undercurrent there. So what it is trying to suggest is that you have to be in a variety of duties in which you have to be engaged, and while you are engaged in the duty, learning and sharing that is anyway implied. The first part is over, the educational perspective. Now this is in complete contrast with the fancy thinking going on now. I have met a lot of people, they say you don't have to do any religious practice, you don't have to do any of this, you can be spiritual. This spirituality and religion are put into completely 2 compartments, and lots of well-meaning people today, I have come across a lot of them, you know what they are saying? What they are saying is you do not have to practice any religion means they see it as huge restrictions. You do not, in achara vicharas particularly, so you do not have to practice any religious restrictions, not perform any of the rituals, because they're all, it comes with a lot of conditions. So you release yourself from these conditions, and what is their fitting argument for that? No, don't worry here, you don't have to do all that. All that you need to do is to be pure-hearted, okay, ethical and moral standards of living. So if you are very ethical person, very moral, all that your truth and all that ahimsa, all that if you do, then they say you have actually got a concession, no japa, no tapa, no tapas, no upasana, no God, no religion, no temple, nothing is required. This is a very serious thinking. Well-meaning people think this is perfectly alright. Whereas this Anuvaka has actually folded all of them into this. Agneyascha and Agnihotrancha is a heavily loaded word. They have just given only an indication there. When we talk about it last time, I didn't. We'll talk about it, we'll see. So the currency that is, the thought that is gaining currency now is you need not be religious at all. In fact, you need not be religious at all, but you can be spiritual. And it's some sort of so to me it appears it is some sort of not even a double promotion, it's a several promotion to go to the final goal. So this is the thinking, right? Now this thinking, a lot of people have it, and they think it's a rational modern thinking with spiritual, all these folds very nicely into this scheme of thinking. Now this thinking has a lot of flaws. I'll use a few ideas to I won't leave this thought. I am not going to, because better we reflect rather than me trying to hard convince people. So I'll put a few thoughts just for you to think about that such a possibility may not be a great possibility. I'll give a few ideas. Look at our Vedic wisdom. In the first session of Taittiriya Upanishad, I made a very nice transparency, the Indian knowledge tradition. I put a triangle, I put everything in one slide, if you remember. There, if you see, I said our knowledge tradition, particularly in Shruti. Shruti has these 4 layers: mantras, brahmanas, aranyakas, and Upanishads. This is a 4 layer which I created like a sort of a pyramid, sort of a thing. It's truly a pyramid. Why? Because if you take, let's say, Rig Veda Samhita, if you take, what you will find, it's true of Rig Veda, it's true of Yajurveda, Samaveda. Atharva Veda is only a reclassification, so we talk about the 3 Vedas only. If you look at these 3, these mantras and brahmanas will constitute 80% of the volume. Let's say there are 10,000 mantras, 10,772 mantras. What you will find is that actually if you put all the Vedas together, because it will be more in actually Yajurveda, I think I should put it that way. If you take this whole repository of mantra, all these Vedic lore, you will find a good chunk of them belongs to actually brahmanas and mantras. The Aranyaka and Upanishads are less, maybe 10-20%. And all these so-called religious practice, upasanas are all part of that. That is why in Taittiriya, it's a Upanishad which is in Jnana Kanda. Taittiriya Upanishad is part of Taittiriya Aranyaka, because in Aranyaka there is a movement from all these we discussed in first class, the movement from these rituals and these brahmanas are all rituals. From there we move into a zone of contemplation. That the transition is Aranyakas, and the end of the Aranyaka is actually Upanishad. That's why they are called Vedanta. Vedanam antaha Vedantaha. Right? So Upanishads and all these are a small proportion, 20%. So by this choice we have made, you know what we are saying? The first thing we are saying is these 80% can go into the drain. It's not required. That is the position we have taken now. 80% of this Vedic wisdom is not required. Because you can be moral, ethical, dharmic person, forget all this, straight you get into thinking, and this is a lot of modern thinking people are here, well-meaning people. The implication of that is 80% of these mantras are useless for us. I think we need to question whether it is a sensible assumption or not. The question is, why did they put a large chunk there? Did they do for time pass, or there is something more to it? In other words, the spirit of what is to be done there we have missed the essence of it. That is why we think they are not required. Otherwise, these 80% mantras in jeopardy now. By this position that we have taken, all those are not required, because they are all part of upasana. They are all part of religious rituals, lot of yajnas. They are all part of. Today we say we can stay clear from all that. This is the position. To me, it is not at all appealing. We need to find an answer to reconcile this apparent conflict in terms of the logic. If you are not able to resolve, then that means that 80% is required. 80% of our evolution lies there, 20% lies here. Otherwise you don't need, if not 80%, if you don't want to take 1-to-1, a majority of it lies there. This is the first argument I want to leave in your mind, this thought. There is another way to argue this. Suppose I want to take a PhD in particular subject. Okay? Now you know what is happening? The question I am asking is, can I skip the 12 years of schooling and 4 years of graduate learning and 2 years of post-graduation and straight go and do PhD? That is what we are now saying. We are saying the religious rituals, upasanas, all those are not required. We will go for this Vedantic thinking, which is ultimate. We have reached the stage where this is not required, we will do that. It amounts to saying that all these are not, anyway I want PhD, let me go. Become 5-year-old, put me into a research department in a university, let me enroll myself. It is akin to saying that. It is similar to saying like that. That I will skip all intermediate steps and go for the final step. That seems to me to be the issue here. The religious. So the question is, if my question is there anything in life? Forget about this thing. You think of anything in life. Is there anything in life in which you can, this leapfrog or skip all the steps and go to the final step? To me, it is not possible. Why I am saying this is, the religious rituals are actually very critical front end. Before we reach a final thought, people, many of my relatives, some of my friends also ask me, Mahadevan, you are saying this, Ramana Maharishi did nothing. He just at the age of 17, he just ran away from his place in Madurai, and then he's a great yogi. My answer to him is, this is the strength of the Indian thinking. Ramana Maharishi, is one instant of Ramana Maharishi. How many million janmas he took before he became a Ramana Maharishi, you don't know. So it's like saying, there is so much, and you take a sample of what you can see and make a judgment on that. You make a judgment on the basis of a small minuscule of sample which is 1 in million, and which has a very trajectory of evolution. If you take a sample, you can't take a sample in a evolved thing and generalize the argument. So nobody, I am very convinced, nobody can escape the front part. Yes, Priya? Yeah? Yes.
What is the message coming out of Bhagavad Gita in this particular passage?
Yes.
Does it emphasize Vedantic thinking as well as religion, or only Vedanta?
Okay. Actually, my next is from the Bhagavad Gita, so I'll come to it. I'll definitely come to it. In fact, you have to read chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita very carefully. Chapter 3 and chapter 5 particularly, I will come to it anyway. So, all these are very illogical. It sounds illogical to me. It's one thing to say I'm not able to find an answer, but I can always tell you what is illogical. See, we can always do that. We know this is illogical. We may not know what is the right thing, but we can definitely say this is illogical. If you are able to come to that conclusion, you will actually search a logic in it. If we are able to, we want to put everything close it, then there is no room for this. To me, it sounds very illogical that 80% of the Vedic lore is not required, that you can skip all intermediate and go to a final step of your evolution. And these examples which are being pointed out are not appealing to me, because that is also illogical to me, because I believe in this Indian system of what is called karma and punarjanma and vasana and that framework. So what I see is a person who has come through a long journey. Our entire ancestral text only talks about it. So in that paradigm, it is hard to argue Ramana Maharishi as one piece. You have to see Ramana Maharishi, I don't know, only God can see his all his previous trajectories. So this argument is futile to me. Now we will look at Bhagavad Gita. So a third argument. Okay. Now what is the central theme in Bhagavad Gita? I'll look at this. In Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 3 and chapter 5 and chapter 18, these 3 chapters, the opening shlokas are very interesting. Because Arjuna actually wants to do this. This is the central theme in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna says, I will run away from everything and I will liberate. No war, nothing, you leave me, give me a direct ticket for this. I will go. He asked 3 times. The first 2 slokas in chapter 3, he says, in fact, in the chapter 3, he was very, very, harsh in his comment. He said, Puram Nischitya Ekameva Vada. He tells Krishna, you better think properly and tell me. This is how he asked. He says, then Krishna said, Sankhya Yoga, Sankhyanam, and Karma Yoga, Karma, like that he answers. He says, should I do Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga? Because from Shloka, 11 is where Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, 11 Shloka is Bhagavad Gita starts. Chapter 2, 11 Shloka, to 24 Shloka is one block. 24 to 38 is another block where he talks about you should fight and so on. And in fact, I will say 24 to 53 is one block, which is all about karma. You should fight, karma nyeva adhikaraha mahapaleshu kadachana, karma yogaha karmasu kausalam, everything is there. Then 54 to 72, he said sitakrit prajnasya kabhasha, then he talks about knowledge. So first 10 slokas knowledge, last 18 slokas knowledge, in between karma. This is the structure of chapter 2. So therefore in chapter 3, Arjuna asked, you just now told me, there is karma is all not good. It's all about knowledge. Why are you asking me to fight? in this war? I will run away. Let me graduate into jnana. This is a question he asked in chapter 3. And he answered in chapter 3, and then he tried to tell him, that's why chapter 3 is called Karma Yoga. Then he talked about jnana in chapter 4. Arjuna got one more chance. So again in chapter 5, the first sloka is, why should I do karma? Should I become a jnani, or should I become a sannyasi or a yogi? A karma yogi or a sannyasi? This is the question he asked in chapter 5. He beautifully answered in chapter 5 that there is an evolution. You can't jump. You can't get a PhD without doing research work or something. You can't get like that. Then he lied low, went on. In 18th chapter, the opening shloka is again the same thing. That time he intelligently changed the word. He said, should I become a tyagi or a yogi? He played with words. But what did he say? He said, I want to skip all that and run away. So the entire message in Bhagavad Gita is, you can't. One shloka I will quote in chapter 3. And these slokas have to make a lot of sense only when we read it. He says, Na karmanana manarambat, na karmana manarambat, naish karmam purushaha ashnute. Okay? Nacha karma sanyasanat eva siddhim samadhi gacchati. He says, without starting karma, what is this fancy idea of giving up? By starting nothing, what are you going to give? You keep on saying, I want to, develop vairagya. You show it here. Stop eating for a day. Put sumptuous food in front of you and say, I am not even, there's not even an iota of feeling I get. That is the only way. Krishna says, start the work. Then let's talk about Naishkarmya. What Naishkarmya are you talking? The example I give is, you play 200 matches, become a world leader in cricket, and then hang the bat. You can't take the bat and say, I'm going to hang the bat now. People will laugh at us. Sunil Gavaskar can do, Tendulkar can do. You and I, if you hang the bat, people think you've gone mad. So, karmana manarambat naish karmam purushaha na ashnute, that is first thing. Second thing what he says, because Arjuna is so intelligent, he came to the second point also. He said, Nacha sannyasa deva. If you say, no, I will become a sannyasa, he says, you will not get siddhi. So this is not an easy route, you can buy a ticket, this is crowded, this is the easy route, let me take a ticket and go here. There are any number of people who took sannyasa and they are in the thick of samsara. Because they go into a sannyasa and go into a mutt, and all their organizational politics they are able to do there. Because that's all they know, they have not evolved. They create havoc in ashrams. With only difference is they have called themselves sannyasi with a saffron robe. Big problem. And the tongue is not controlled, food is not controlled, their feelings are not controlled, everything happens. So the point is, this is only an udaharana. Chapter 3 is this is the fourth shloka in chapter 3. Like that there are shlokas in chapter 5. Point I am saying is, Krishna very succinctly says, of course I want you to get liberated, but please understand, work and work and work. Engage in the world. After that you will, so that's why Adi Shankaracharya in his Viveka Chudamani says, Karmaha chitta shuddhyarte, na vastupa labhyate, vastu siddhi vicharena na kinchit karma kotibi. He told both. He said, Karmaha, so why do you do karma, you will ask. He has an answer. He says, you have to do work because through that you have to become pure. This Naishkarmya comes after that. You become pure in life. Through work you become pure. Purity is what? Purity means purity. That's why he says, Damascha swadhyaya pravachane, shamascha swadhyaya pravachane. Shama and Dama are nothing but purity. Your ability to control your indriyas, indriya nigraha, your ability to manage your feelings in the world inside are purity. He says that will come only through karma. So these whole religious prescriptions are there. The religious prescriptions are squarely anchored there. I'll give one or two smaller examples, but we need to think through this. I want this as a self-reflection. I am not going to get into it in great detail. Take a simple question. How do I get Indriya Nigraha? Or Vairagya, or Shama, or Dama, whatever word you want to use. Right? I can bet you, and you will agree with me, it is not done by memorizing the meaning of the word Dama or Shama. You will not get Dama and Shama by memorizing the meaning of the word Dhamma or Shama. You will not get Dhamma and Shama by performing a japa of Dhamma and Shama a million times a day. Simple. I am taking a simple idea. How do I develop Vairagya? Put yourself to test. This is what our religious practices given us. Upavasa, Upasana, Achara, Maunavrata, a whole lot of things which are part of this religious prescription, they are all given to say, try it, test it. If you are in Upavasa once in 15 days, you will really know where is your Dhamma and Shama. Don't waste your time, try it out. You just take a decision, tomorrow onwards I am not eating some 500 items. Try it out for about 3 months. Whereas I know people who thoroughly read all these, thoroughly memorize, middle of the night you wake up, they will tell the meaning of Taittiriya Upanishad. Morning 7 o'clock, coffee color is slightly lighter, there is a world war in home. Or, I am not getting coffee, I will get headache, I will not do a world war, but my whole day is gone. Then we have got no Dhamma or no Shama. I am just giving an example. That's why Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, water, you don't get water by squeezing a paper written water. You can't squeeze a paper written rain and then rain will come. So in the same way, all these will come only by practice. So religious practices are actually meant for it. And what is this Devi Upasana? What is this, Saligrame Vishnuvat? What is it? If you are not able to, the whole Upasana I argued like that. If you are not able to see a God in a particular form, whatever be the form, this mana control will never happen. This is a method to taper your mind. It is like taking a thread and trying a cow so that it can, go through only a certain region. So the Upasana is actually a technique for it. So like that, there are so many things in religious practices which are all weaved into our living. And what will it do? It will do two things. If somebody can practice religion slowly, understand what it is and find the Taitttiriya and really started practicing, two things will happen. First thing that will happen is, we will develop Shama Dhamadi Sadhana Sampat. Yes, it's being talked about 100 times. How do you get it? I know the meaning of it. Theory I know. Sadhana Chatushtaya, Sadhana Sampat, I will give you 1 hour lecture if you want. Maybe you will give 1 hour lecture also. It's not that. How do you develop it? A person who gets a little religious will slowly develop that. Vairagya will come, Indriya Nigraha will come, Shama will come. It will all grow in its own small little ways, it will grow. Second, another major contribution of religious thing, this entire Yajna and Yaga and all these Ishti and all those, Agni, there are 21 different types of Agni. Agnayascha Swadhyaya Pravachanaja, he has said just in half a sentence. There are 26 different types of Agnis, which are all developed. And what is the spirit of that? It is to actually remind us what is called Parasparam Bhavayantaha Shre Devan Bhavayata Anena Te Deva Bhavayantaha Vaha Parasparam Bhavayantaha Shreyaha Paramavapsita. The 11th shloka in chapter 3. Paraspara Bhava, we will understand what it means. The offerings that we make in an yajna are symbolic. Religious practices are sanketa. They are symbolic, but they point to something deep. So it will tell us Pancha Maha Yajnas are part of religious yajnas, religious practices. In fact, Pancha Maha Yajnas are here. So this is again in contrast with today's thinking. This is the second contrast. Then there is a third contrast. The third contrast is the third block. It says Atitayascha Swadhyaya Pravachanacha Manushancha Swadhyaya Pravachanacha. All that is saying, Prajacha Swadhyaya Pravachanacha, Prajanascha Swadhyaya Pravachanacha, Prajatischa Swadhyaya Pravachanacha. There are 5. These 5 are pointing to the criticality of what is called social sustainability. Please understand, in our scheme of things, there are 4 ashramas. Brahmacharya, then Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. Okay? You know what is the most celebrated ashrama? People say Sannyasa ashrama. The most celebrated ashrama is Grihastha ashrama. In one perspective, yes, Sannyasa ashrama. most celebrated ashrama is Grihastha ashrama. Why? Because society will not sustain without householders. A sannyasi depends, he is a parivrajaka. Sannyasi depends only on a grihastha. A brahmachari depends only on a grihastha. A vanaprastha is only a transition ashrama. In a vanaprastha stage, that vanaprastha will depend on the larger natural systems in which he has surrendered himself. That is a ashrama in transition, so you should leave vanaprastha ashrama. There are three major players here. One is brahmacharya, another is grihastha ashrama, and the last one is sannyasa ashrama. Nobody can sustain it without a grihastha ashrama. That's why a wife is called saha dharmacharini. It's a word for a wife. Only a householder, a husband and a wife has any hope of upholding dharma. A brahmachari cannot cook every day and eat for himself. It's too taxing for him. He has to study, he has to do other things. He is temperamentally also not ready. And sannyasi, the way we have designed sannyasi, he should take his hands off. Completely, he or she must take his hands off from everything and just rely on what comes in front of them. And what comes in front of them is dictated by Grihasthashram, not by them, honestly speaking. So this Grihastha ashrama is the pillar of social sustainability. That's why everything here is to do with Grihastha ashrama. Atithiyas. Atithi. In the next Anuvaka it is going to say Atithi Devo Bhava. Same ideas are going to be expanded in the next Anuvaka. So Atithayascha Swadhyaya, Manushancha Swadhyaya. How do you treat people? It's a social system. How do you treat people? That's what is implied, and all those are there. So again, this has the cardinal principle here is a Grihastha ashrama person must do what is called Pancha Mahayajnas. Nobody can escape from this. Pancha Mahayajnas are our daily rituals that we have to do. They are all coming here. So we'll quickly see the mantras. This is the spirit of these Anuvaka. Now the mantras are straightforward once we look at these. So we'll look at the mantras actually. So last time we saw all those 5 values which are Ritam Cha, Satyam Cha, Tapas Cha, Dhamma and Shama we have seen. Then comes Agnayascha Swadhyaya Pravachane Agnihotrancha Swadhyaya Pravachane. So there are 2. This is a very short 2 indicators. What is Rishi saying? Rishi is saying religious practices which are 80% of the Vedic wisdom, which are all in Brahmanas and mantras, are very important. Don't leave it. This word Agni and Agnihotra actually points to that in a very concise way. As I told you, moment you say Agni, what must come to our mind is Yajna. The Agni is required for an Yajna. What is required is actually, when you say Agni, Yajna. Now, chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, Shloka 9 to Shloka 20, extols this concept of Panchamaha Yajnas. Karma, it says, Yajnartam karma, karmana lokan anyatra karma bandhanaha. Tasmat karma kaunteye mukta sangha samachara. He says, spirit of Yajna is what with which we should engage in this world. All other ways, lokan anyatra karma bandhanaha. You will be actually tied. You will be constrained by the kind of work you do. Tasmat karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. You little step out. Do it with the spirit of yajna. That yajna is pointed to us. That yajna is shown to us symbolically through keeping Agni. See, everyone, if I told it last class, I think, as a person is married, in the Grihastha ashrama, you have to, the Patni brings the Agni. That Agni remains until both of them pass. Their, ideal designed thing is the Patni must pass away first, followed by the Pati. So the Pati will use the Agni, and until people breathe their last, that Agni has to be maintained. So they do what is called Upasana, which is called a, Shrauta Smarta Karya, and they do what is called Agnihotra, which is called Shrauta Karya. This is from Shruti, that is from Smriti. Smarta Karya, Upasana, this is Agnihotra. There are hardly any Nitya Agnihotri. We have seemed to have moved out of all that. So let me talk the spirit of it. The spirit of this statement is saying that you have to exist in a world of mutual dependence. We have to live in a world of mutual dependence. Devan bhaveta anena. You make yajnas, the devas will be happy, they will give you. And deva means what? Nature is deva, rain is deva, the plant kingdom is deva. And that is why, they do yajna and then they bring the equipment and see whether the plant is growing. They come to a conclusion the plant is growing better. All that scientific studies are going now. I see quite a few of them doing it. Spirit here is, this Agneyascha and Agnihotrancha says, these rituals are reminding you of Paraspara Bhava. Rituals give you a certain opportunity to try your Vairagya, try your Shama and Dhamma. So that is all explained here through these two words, Agnihotrancha and Agneyascha. That's what the Rishi is pointing to the student here. Then comes Atitayascha Swadhyaya Pravachane Manushancha Swadhyaya Pravachane. So 5 of them are there. So first thing it talks about is Atitaya. Take care of the guests. In fact, in our Samskriti, there are 2 things which is very bad to do. There are 2 things which we are not supposed to do. When I grew in my village, I could see that was still practiced, which is 50 years back, 45 years back. And what were those 2? The first thing is, you should not sell food. Food cannot be sold. Selling food is a very bad idea, actually. Selling food, right? Selling vidya. You cannot sell food, you cannot sell knowledge. This was our... Now, how do you actually do it? How do you practice it? People are practicing it in some of the villages, they are practicing it even today. Because many of us are far away from villages. I will explain what used to happen in our village. In our village, what was the population? There were about a couple of thousand or something. There were about 6-7 streets, all that. What we will do is, there are about 300-400 houses in all. And between these 300-400 houses, we used to create an ability to feed 15 people a day. Atiti, remember the word Atiti comes from Yasya Titi na asti. Nobody gave a date. Now guests are telling, can I come? I am coming tomorrow morning. That is not Atiti. They are all people who have come with advance notice. The word is Atiti. Titi means day. Atiti, Nai Tatpurusha, Nanji Tatpurusha, Atiti. That is the meaning actually. Those who come without notice, they are the true guests. Guests by definition, they don't give you notice. Today, in our modern living, if somebody comes without notice, we are actually challenged. We are a little worried. What do I do? So in our village, what they do is 10 food every day is possible. So what we do is, we have a nice operational arrangement for it. We leave 10 numbered tokens in somebody's house. So there are 2 operational arrangements. First operational arrangement is, this must be capacitated, so we put 10 numbered tokens and keep it. There is one Dharma Adhikari who will actually keep it. And everybody knows in this village he is the Dharma Adhikari. So I can go to his house and ask, sir, can I have food? So if he has some tokens, he will give you. So that is that part of it. The other part of it is, the village will have a routine by which the 10 will be supplied in a collective way, either that way, or there will be a common place, a chowltry or somewhere, where we will always cook for 10, for which we will contribute in cash or kind or something. I have seen it. So that is the way we have to treat Atitis. That's what he says, Atitayascha. These are all part of social sustainability. Whereas today food has to be sold and you can make a lot of money also. We have business models in which we also our students make restaurant businesses and all that. Anyway, let that be there. So that is the spirit of Atitayascha, Swadhyaya Pravachanecha. Then Manushancha. We have to understand, treating human beings with a lot of reverence, with a lot of dignity and is a part of a kartavya. So it is a part of social sustainability. Today in modern living, one of the biggest things that we have actually acquired very well from the Western for whatever reasons is people who look very different from us, very alien to us, we get very insecure. We are very worried about them. We are actually the modern living people. The modern people are the most insecure people. The Vyaktitva inside is so weak. So they protect themselves in many ways. If you see, people who are very alien their looks or thought or language, you develop. Kids are also like that today. We have not exposed them much more freely into all these kinds of things. There is a cocoon in which we are in. This Manusham does not mean that. It means understand that this fabric of social sustainability is very, very important. You must be part of that. Enabling that very nice social fabric is the word Manusham. Then there are three words. Praja, Prajanam and Prajati. There are three words there. Praja cha swadhyaya pravachanecha, Prajanascha swadhyaya pravachanecha, Prajatischa swadhyaya pravachanecha. So there are three words here. Praja is offsprings. And the teacher says you have to, have offsprings. That is your kartavya. Why? Because that is the charm of Grihastha. The dharma has to be passed, baton has to be passed. If the whole country becomes sannyasi, then we are actually closing the shop. Think about this possibility. It's a very theoretical possibility. If the whole world is only sannyasi, we are shutting the shop. The generation is over. All this wisdom and knowledge are all coming to an end. Not is baton passed. So this is a cosmic divine order in which we should understand we play a role. Our marriage was looked at like that. Our marriage was looked at from this perspective. It is the divine Leela Vinoda in which I am playing my role. But Vivaha mantras are like that. When the boy says, I will put my, I will do the procreation, which is prajanam. Prajanam is the process of procreation. When I do the procreation, this is the mantra, this is the thought. I want to play this, my role, so that this tantu, prajatantu mavyavachetsi, it will come in the next Anuvaka, all these are repeated. So I think I can rush through the next Anuvaka because all these ideas. Rishi says, you don't cut the prajatantu. The thread of progeny don't cut. Mahanarayana Upanishad, there is a nice mantra which also emphasizes this. Same idea. So, getting children is a kartavya. Therefore, the act of procreation is very, very important and a holy act. It is not seen as a sensual pleasure act and all that. It is some other thing. It is not. It is seen as a ahuti. It is seen as an yajna. That's why there is a Shanti Homa to be done before you have, the nuptials and all that. That are all now gone. That is the most important ritual in a marriage, not the Vivaha. It is actually Shanti Homa. You have to say that I want to, baton pass. Give me good santadis, I want to baton pass. That is the perspective with which they saw marriage and the progeny and so on. That is the prajana. Then it says prajati. By prajati it says, you have a responsibility to make sure that your next generation is also coming. The grandson. Which means, it is not saying I will get my son, but I don't care what happens. Today, that is the situation. I have an arm's length between me and my son and daughter. They figure out what to do. They find somebody to marry or they don't marry, and I find it difficult to engage. Rishi says no. You get your first generation. Before you die, make sure the second generation is placed and then you can close your eyes. You know that the baton is passing now. This is two at a time. Na? Look at the logic here. One at a time doesn't guarantee. Two at a time will guarantee. It's a very safety net of the second order. So the Prajati talks about grandson. In other words, it talks about the Prajatantu. Praja merely says get sons. Prajanam says therefore engage into the act of procreation. But then Prajati says it is your responsibility to see that your children are married and they are on their way. That is your responsibility. Not the responsibility of marriage bureaus or somebody between the two of them or something. That is so in all, if you actually look at it, this whole block of 5 mantras talks about social sustainability. Will you leave social sustainability as an idea which nobody is worried, or you will integrate it into your thought process? The Rishi is telling a passing out student, integrate it into your thought process. That is more sustainable. Don't leave it to somebody or leave it to chance. Those are the 3 things that he says. Then this Anuvaka ends with an endorsement. That is the next thing that comes. It is an endorsement, and it says Satyamiti Satyavacharati Taraha Tapaiti Tapo Nitya Paurusishti Swadhyaya Pravachana Evetina Komo Kalya. There are three big people. Today we want endorsements. Only thing is the people who endorse seem to be different. Because on a Sankranti day, actress, a 16-year-old actress should come and do Ashirvada for you in TV. That is endorsement we are into today. The youngest child who has certain other qualifications to become a celebrity has to, and we all must sit in front of the TV religiously and go through the whole process on every habba. This is what I see in TVs. No elderly people, 5 o'clock or 4:30 they call. One Nadasara between 4:30 and 5 to 5:30 something, and after that over. Rest of the day, the endorsements and the Ashirvada and what is message you have to hear, where to go, are all managed by only some celebrities which are all some 16 to 18-year-old girls and a few other boys who are maybe a few more years old. But the fact remains, we need endorsement. Who endorses can be different. Here there are three people who are endorsing this startup. So this is the Anuvaka ends with an endorsement. We have used today's words. There is a first person called Satyavacha. His name is Satyavacha. These are all, name came out of what they practiced in life. He is called Satyavacha because he always speaks only truth. But he belongs to a clan called Ratitara. Ratitarasya putraha Ratitaraha. It's called Taddita, Pratyaya. Ratitarasya putraha Ratitaraha. Dasharathasya putraha Dasharati. Drupadasya putri Draupadi, like that. So Ratitaraha is from Ratitara clan. His name is also Satyavacha. And so he practiced it, so he says Satyamiti. He says, no, all these 12 values are there. I pick one value out of the 12, which is practicing Satya. That is the endorsement he made. Then there is a second person, he is called Tapo Nityaha. Again, he is a Tapo Nityaha because he is a Tapo Nityaha. That is why the title was given to him. But he comes from Purusishta. Purusishtasya putraha Paurusishti. So he comes from the clan of Purusishta. So this Paurusishti alias Tapo Nityaha says, no, tapas. The most important value I will pick is tapas. So that is what he says. He endorses tapas as the most important value. Then you have what is called the third person called Nakaha, who is the son of Mudgala. So he is Maudgalyaha. Mudgalasya putraha Maudgalyaha. So he is the third. So he says Swadhyaya Pravachana Eveti. He picks up Swadhyaya and Pravachana. So the Anuvaka says Swadhyaya and Pravachana, Satya and Tapa are very, very important. Three people are endorsing these three, and that indeed is what we should practice. Anuvaka Rishi ends by saying, this is indeed what we should practice. And how do you emphasize it? Say it 2 times. Something you want to thumb the desk and say 2 times. That's a practice, no? Something we like the most, we say 2 times. If you like the child so much, we call the child 2 times the same name. Because these are all the expressions. Something is very important, we say 2 times. So tat hi tapaha, tat hi tapaha. Tat plus hi tadhi in sandhi. Okay? Then tadhi tapaha, tadhi tapaha. This indeed is penance. This indeed is penance. This indeed is what we should do. So this Anuvaka name has transitioned from the 8 Anuvakas which are all about Upasanas. Because the Rishi wants to tell him, you have to be in the Vichara Kanda, you should be in the Karma Kanda, you should be in the Upasana Kanda. You should be relevant to the world also. You can't, again you can't say, I will run away from everything, and then if everybody starts saying it, it's a very unsustainable idea. So there is a logic in which the thought is flowing in Sikshavalli. It talks about Karma Kanda, it talks about Upasana Kanda, a lot of 5 different types of Upasana. Now the Rishi is broad basing. Yeah, these are people passing out. Give them the perspective of life. Tell them these are the things you have to be in life. Don't be just doing one. So the meaning of success in life is contained in this Anuvaka. The meaning of success in this life is a meaning to education, a meaning to how do you approach education, a meaning to how do you relate yourself to the knowledge system around you, a meaning to how do you relate to people around you. All those are so. In a nutshell, this Anuvaka is a lens to the perspectives of what is success in life, how do you lead in life, where do you go in life. All those are what the Rishi has turned attention to, and emphasizing all that to the passing out students. With this, this Anuvaka is over. Then there is a short Anuvaka, just 4 lines, very powerful. It is actually uttered. It's a nice Anuvaka which we will see in the next class. And then the 11th Anuvaka which expands the same theme in a great detail. With that, Sikshavalli gets over. We will continue it in the next class. Thank you.